Hey comic book fans, welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0, and fans, you're back with me, Mike Spider Slayer, getting ready to do the countdown, episode number 124. Now this is the video series where I take my favorite comics of the week, and obviously I count them down from my least favorite all the way to that top spot. Now a little modification here with the countdown. When I originally started the countdown, I didn't have as many comics to read back then, and the video didn't take as long, but now I average around 16 books. And if I go into great detail about every single comic, this video is going to be an hour long each and every week. And I want to keep this watchable and get things to the point when it comes to the countdown. So when it gets down to that top 5 books, I want to focus on those because those are the books that I was really into this week. If there's a highlight in a particular book that's number 13 or 12, I'm going to point it out, and maybe a book that might be on the rise. So I'm going to try to keep it a little bit brief. Let's see if I can do that. I tend to ramble sometimes. So with that being said, I have 18 comics to talk about this week, and 2 of them were digital. So let's start. All right. So JLA issue number 5 was number 18 this week. Not necessarily that it was a bad story in any sense, but it took it away from the whole Rayo situation, Rayo and Superman. And I was a little bit frustrated with that because it's like I waited a whole month for this to come out, and we get a story of Martian Manhunter. This is something that you would do in an annual, wouldn't it be? So I was a little bit frustrated with that whole situation. I'm not a huge Martian Manhunter fan, so this didn't really have an appeal to me. So now I have to wait a whole nother month, and I felt like I spent $3.99 for really no reason here. So if you're not interested in Martian Manhunter story, don't pick this up if you missed it last week. You're not really missing anything. So after reading this, I didn't really give it a review or an honest grade because it's like I had no interest in it. So I only skimmed through it. All right. So number 17 is the true, I guess you want to say, worst pick of the week for me. And this kind of veers away from the main story a little bit, and this is Sinestro issue number 17, and this has to do with these impaling characters here. Sinestro, you find out, teams up with Black Adam in here. And, you know, the frustrating thing about this particular issue is it was done by 3 separate artists. And it really takes you away from the story. At times, the art was pretty good. You get a situation in here with Wonder Woman that was involved in the story. But, again, that artwork is really what deters you from the book. Characters at times had, like, faceless expressions on them. And we find out in this issue that Black Adam teams up with Sinestro. He becomes a Sinestro Corps member. And, and now they have to continue fighting these impaling characters. The story for me is really not that interesting. I was more interested in the whole situation with Sinestro recruiting his Corps and, trying to protect the galaxy and things like that. And these characters that they're facing right now, I just don't find them very intriguing or very formidable. I don't see them being a real threat in the long term. And it was okay book. I mean, I gave it I think a 2.5 out of 5 stars. All right. Next book is number 16, and that goes to Superman, issue number 46. Now, I read this book digitally, and it was one of those books that I don't know where they want to go with this version of Superman. We have Lois and Clark now. We have American Alien that's out. And now you have this Superman book that was, pre-New 52 Superman. He's got lack of powers. He's still dealing with Hoarder Root. He's wrestling for money. You get to see him with a championship belt in this issue. It's like, really, what's going on? And then at the end, you find out that, Jimmy Olsen gets injured in the book as well. And it's just like, oh, is Jimmy dead? No, he's not going to die. They're not going to kill him off. But this direction of Superman has been very disappointing for me, and I don't like it at all. I read it just to see what's going to happen. It's like I almost hate read this book. So After reading this one, I gave this one, actually, I should have reversed those because this was a digital comic. Superman was the one that was the worst pick. That one got 2 stars. Sinestro gets 2 3/4 stars. So, yeah, Superman, sorry, buddy, you're my least favorite comic of the week. That got number 17. Sinestro got his number 16. So, sorry for the mix-up there. All right, so without further ado, if you're a Superman fan and you're tired of this version of Superman, you don't have to read it anymore. You can read American Alien. You can read Lois and Clark. That's the Superman that you're going to want to read. All right, so going forward now, we're going to talk about number 15. And number 15 this week was Silk, issue number 1. I'm not a huge fan of Silk. It's a little bit disappointing for me, just to the fact being that I was on board and I was interested about this character. I guess when she was introduced in the last Spider-Man volume, I think it was issue number 4. And it looked like she was going to be like this serious character. She was going to be the next true Spider-Woman. But then we got all these other Spider-Girls out there that came out at the same time. Spider-Gwen, we have Spider-Verse with the 2 girls in it as well. You have the Spider-Woman series. So it's like we've been thrusted in our face with all these Spider-Female characters. And I just think that this book, even though it has J. Jonah in there, which makes the book kind of entertaining, I just felt that this book is almost too lighthearted. There's almost too many books out there that are trying to be kind of like funny, like how Hawkeye was. And I'm not a huge fan of the artwork. I mean, it's okay, but I didn't really enjoy this story with the whole Goblin Gang and the whole situation of her being like this double agent with Mockingbird in here as well. You know, it kind of turned me off to it. And one of the biggest things that gets me pissed off about this book is that Black Cat is in this book. And obviously, we think that Cindy Moon is working with her, but she's really obviously working against her. And Black Cat, for me as a villain, it just doesn't work. I don't like her as this crime boss or whatnot, and it's very frustrating to see. I want the Felicia Hardy that I've known and loved for years and years and years, how she's the supporting character in an Amazing Spider-Man book, where in this series, I don't like it. It doesn't fit her. I just don't see it, you know? And so after reading this book, I gave it 3 stars. You know, some people might like it. Some people might like this, kind of like this cartoony anime style of artwork, but I don't know. I've kind of been turned off about it. When I looked at the artwork and I saw the way Cindy Moon was in Amazing Spider-Man and now how she is now, it's kind of frustrating. And me and my friend Jay on Comic Frontline were discussing about it, and we're talking about how Cindy Moon looks like she's like 15, 16 years old, and she's supposed to be this character that's just as old as Peter Parker in here. So, and Peter's like, what, 30 at least? So, yeah, that's kind of the frustration that I have with that artwork too, and I agreed with him there. All right, so going forward now, we're going to go on to number 14. Number 14 was Spawn, issue number 325. I'm sorry, 325. I gave it a 3 3/4 out of 5 stars. Spawn, written by Todd McFarlane, drawn by Eric Larson. I picked this up because in the early 90s, late 80s, huge fan of these writers and these artists because, yes, they did Spider-Man. And I wanted to see these two work together again in a book. And if you're looking for a kind of a in-depth story in this issue, don't be surprised if you're going to get one, because this is the most dialogue you get in the entire book. Spawn winds up going to hell. He wants to fight Lucifer. And in order to get there, he has to battle all of his minions. And you get to see battle after battle after battle after battle. Now, I must say that the artwork was very pretty in this book. And can you say Venom all over again? I mean, Eric Larson was the creator, not of Venom, but he was the creator of Venom's crazy tongue. Because when Todd McFarlane created him, he didn't have that tongue. Eric Larson was the one that created that tongue. So when I saw this come out of Spawn, I was like, dude, what do you want to draw? Venom or do you want to draw Spawn? You know? The book is cool. It's a very artistically, it took a lot of work, I'm sure, to draw this and to do the battle, but story-wise, there wasn't anything there. You know, it's just him battling the whole time. So I'm sure the next issue will have a little bit more story, and it looks like he's going to have to fight the devil himself. There again, there's that actual picture of Venom Spawn. So I thought it was an okay book. I gave it 3.25 out of 5 stars. Again, great artwork, no story. All right, and so that was number 14. So now we go on to number 13 this week. Number 13 goes to Batman and Robin Eternal. This book is kind of lost its like oomph for me. Obviously because it's a weekly. You know, when story arcs go on and on and on and on, you tend to not get as excited for it unless there's a great cliffhanger at the end of the book. And at the end of this book, we wind up seeing this guy in this church, and he sees Jason and Tim Drake looking like demonic creatures. We get to see a little bit more of Mother in this issue on how she works. The artwork is split up by different artists now in this particular issue and different inkers. So this is the thing that I start to, you know, where it feels like the regular artists on this book got to take a break and then they throw in like their backup artists in here. It's a good story. You know, it's not going to be full of 100% of action and greatest cliffhangers in every single issue, but still this is better than Batman Eternal overall. So I gave Batman and Robin Eternal number 8, 3.5 out of 5 stars. Just not blowing my socks off like it did like that first and second issue and things like that. There's not as much, you know, character interaction. It's just a lot of fighting miscellaneous people in this issue mainly. All right, so now we go on to number 12. And number 12 this week goes to Wonder Woman issue number 46. This wraps up the whole Wonder Woman fighting Angus story, or Angus, or whatever his name is. He's the one that turns Donna Troy into stone in the past issue. And don't worry, Donna's okay. We find that out at the end of the issue, and we find out that she's working with the goddess of peace, Irene, I think her name is. She's not really working with her. She's working against her. And she's obviously under some psychotic spell that Ares is dead. And there's this whole rant throughout the entire issue of how Wonder Woman should be the god of war and how she should handle her role. And throughout the entire issue, that's what goes on in this book. It's repeated over and over and over and over again. And you're just like, dude, enough. I get it. I get what you're trying to say. And it was just like she takes her on this tour, and it felt like I was reliving like Scrooged, you know, or Groundhog Day or something like that. She kept on taking her to different places, and then you wind up seeing the goddess of peace winds up, I guess, her spell being broken. Ares is alive. I don't know. There was all kinds of crazy stuff that was going on, but in the end, we find out that Donna Troy is okay. She's looks like she's alive and well in the end, and the artwork continues to be solid by David Finch, and but this one just didn't knock my socks off. I've been okay with this story arc, so it's finally over. We're going to see where it goes next. I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars, and that was number 12. All right, so now we go on to number 11, and number 11 goes to Howling Commandos, issue number 2. Howling Commandos is a fun series. If you like horror creatures and Halloween and mermen and vampires, it's a book for you. This is just a supernatural type of story this time around, where our heroes have to go and they have to rescue this girl. She sees all these mummy-like situations. I think the artwork is very solid. The tone of the book, the colors of the book fit that tone, where it is that horrific feel in there. We get to see again our heroes deal with these mummy creatures and this girl that sees these spirits and whatnot. And we get to see a little bit of back history one of the main characters in here, the female character, how she's a Dracula and a Wolfman at the same time, and how she's dealt with her powers. We get a little bit of a side story here where it comes to Dracula being experimented in this book, so I thought that was really neat as well. So there's different types of storylines going on here, and we get this continuation of this whole mummy situation, dealing with this, what seems to be right now the main antagonist, the Sphinx, and where it looks like we're fighting against him. But this is a cool book. I mean, it's not like the best read ever, but it is entertaining read, and I do enjoy it for what it is, and I'm going to keep buying it. So, all right, so we're going to go forward now, and we're going to go forward to number 10, and let's see. Number 11 was a 3 3/4 stars. Number 10 goes to another digital book, and that was Lois and Clark. And Lois and Clark number 2. And this book was pretty good. I don't have the digital book on me to show you, but this book it's very home-like. It has to deal with Clark being under the shadows, and it's not like the New 52 Superman, and he's raising his son, and at the end of this book, something happens to where it gets like all like weird, and I didn't quite understand what was going on, so maybe that's why this fell a little bit lower on my list. And I read this book last Wednesday, so it's hard to remember what was going on, but he's very secretive of anything showing up that has to do with Lois, his son. Anything can't show up because they can't know that he exists, and they live in hiding. And I find that aspect of the book very interesting. But now they're going into space, and they're dealing with different situations. So it will be interesting to see where that book goes. Again, I gave that one 3 3/4 out of 5 stars. All right, next we go on to number 9, and number 9 goes to Darth Vader, issue number 13. Now, Vader Down, part 1 was just a phenomenal read. I think this book was so good, and in this book kind of was a letdown. It wasn't as awesome as the first issue. It started off okay. As you get to see Vader, looks like he's going to do battle against all the rebels, and you're just like, oh, what's he going to do with them? So the first thing he winds up doing is he ignites all the freaking grenades and blows them all up. And he's doing battle against tanks and stuff like that, and you're like, fuck yeah, man, this is good stuff. And then it just veers off from him, and you don't see him for the rest of the issue, and you're like, dude. And so they got to try to find Han and Leia go after Luke. They got to try to find him, and then you wind up seeing Aphra in this story as she gets involved, and she feels like to redeem herself that she has to capture Luke Skywalker, and you wind up seeing C-3PO at the end of it. Luke thinks that it's actually C-3PO, and R2's trying to warn him. He's like, dude, just calm down. And then you get the evil C-3PO there that shocks him, and he falls on the ground. And I'm just like, this felt more of like a Darth Vader, like the Darth Vader series than that separate Vader Down book that we started with. It started really cool, and then it kind of ended like, the one thing I don't like about the Darth Vader series is I'm not a huge fan of Aphra, and I'm not a huge fan of those imitation droids. I feel that they're okay, but they need to be disposable. They need to eventually go away, and Darth Vader move on from them. And for them to be in this series, it takes it away from the true Star Wars feel. The first issue felt like that real true Star Wars, the way Darth Vader is. When you insert these other two characters, it's not as strong. That's why it didn't get as high for me on the countdown this week, and it fell to number 9 this week, all the way from the top spot to the number 9 spot. So, again, 3 3/4 stars for me. All right, next we go on to number 8, and number 8 goes to G.I. Joe Cobra World Order. This is part 2. This book is pretty cool because you find out in this book that Duke has a wife. I thought that was pretty neat. The artwork is very well done in this series. I think it's awesome to look at. And we get to see that because that Luke takes off in his actual in his jet, Cobra thinks that something is going on, so they elevate their plans to dominate the world. And now G.I. Joe has to retaliate and see if they can be ready to stop Cobra from starting this whole world domination. There's some good artwork in here. Zartan's in this book. It's a cool book, and at the end you get to see Duke actually reunite with his wife, which I thought was really cool. So I can't wait to see where this actually goes. I haven't read too much of G.I. Joe, but I think this is a cool little series to read. And after reading this one, I gave this one 3 3/4 out of 5 stars. All right, next we go on to number 7. Number 7 goes to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, issue number 52. In this book, we get to see Splinter deal with a Foot Clan member that was kind of betraying them. You get to see the Turtles actually do battle against these phantom-like creatures or guys or whatever it is. And we get to see Splinter really talking with his I'm trying to remember, trying to talk with the clan member here on what it is, to be part of the Foot Clan the right way and not under Shredder's rage, which I thought was really interesting. And then we have all the other mutants here, surprising Michelangelo to fit in with their group. It's like a welcoming committee in here. So I thought this book was pretty cool. You get to see training between Leonardo and Aeoplex in here as well. So I think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a solid book. The story is good. The artwork is good. I love the Elite Guard, the Elite Foot Guard. I think that they were pretty awesome in there as well. So this is a solid series. It's always been pretty good. I just dropped away from it for a while, and recently I picked it up, and I'm enjoying it. So I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars this week. All right, so now we go on to number 6, and number 6 goes to Carnage, issue number 2. If you read issue number 1, you got to see Carnage gets trapped in a mine. Now we get Eddie Brock and the rest of the crew going after them. J. Jonah's son is in this book, and you really get the feel of how horror this book is with the artwork that's in here, the colors that are in here. Very dark, very gritty artwork, and it reminds you of like the It, where you just get this creature that looks around under the grounds, and it's very shadowy and you can't find out what's going on. So this book does a really good job at keeping the suspense for the reader as you're going through the panels looking at the book, which I think is awesome here. Carnage makes his appearance at times in the shadows, and then he kind of dips away, which I think is pretty cool as well. And the funny thing is that J. Jonah's son, Colonel Jameson, you find out in here, check out this page here, you find out that he still has his man-wolf powers, and he changes into man-wolf at the end of this. And I was like, oh, damn. And it's like Carnage and man-wolf are going to square off against each other. And I was like, dude, that's crazy, because you get to see him go through this transformation in here. And there's some other stuff going on here, too, with the guy that's in charge of the mines. He finds this secret book. So I thought that ending was cool. I wasn't expecting Jameson to sit there and change into man-wolf in front of us, but that was gorgeous artwork in there. And that makes you really feel now that that's that horror feel book. And I really enjoyed it. And it was just outside the top 5. Got 4 out of 5 stars for me, and got to number 6. All right, so now we go on to the top 5. And the top 5 this week starts off with Venom Space Knight, issue number 1. This book was really cool. And the thing I liked about this book was it felt like a true number 1. Like you were being introduced to an all-new, all-different Venom who is obviously working with the symbiote with Flash Thompson. And I love the painted art style type. For some reason, I enjoyed it, and it fit the book really well. He's in this alien world, doing this mission, and it just was very descriptive. The symbiote looked nice. The aliens, the different creatures, the different species looked very well. The dialogue was beautiful in this book, and you get to see him in this issue just pretty much introduce you to what Venom Space Knight does. And he's trying to find out who he is, who his status quo is. He's like, I am this, I'm trying to remember what he actually said. Let's see if I can say, if I can find it real quick, but I might not be able to. He's like a hero of the cosmos. He's like, what does that mean, And he's trying to find out himself, or agent of the cosmos. And so you find himself helping out, this alien race that they were trying to extract their blood from. He winds up developing this friend of a robot that winds up wanting to get killed because he's being controlled by this pirate. And it was really, really cool in here. And, the robot's like, please, I don't want to function anymore. I don't want to do his bidding. And he's like, I'll tell you where you want if you want to destroy me. But in the end, it's not what happens. He winds up gaining a friend in the whole situation. But again, I like the book. It was a true introduction to Venom Space Knight. And it looks like that his adventures, his true next adventure, his true story arc will begin in the next issue. And it has me intrigued to see where's this guy going to go? What is he going to be involved with? So this had a different type of feel to it. So Venom Space Knight issue number 1 got 4.25 out of 5 stars for me. All right, next we go on to number 4. And number 4 this week goes to Guardians of the Galaxy issue number 2. We find out in this issue that a destroyer winds up coming, and Hala winds up, I guess it was being destroyed. I'm trying to remember because it's one of the books I read earlier in the week as well. There was a Kree that comes and winds up going after the Guardians of the Galaxy because she finds out that her planet was destroyed and she wants revenge on them. And the artwork, I think Sarah Bocelli does the artwork on this. No, I'm sorry, Valerio Schnitti is absolutely gorgeous. The facial expressions in this book, to seeing how her planet was actually destroyed, was impeccable. I was like, wow. And again, she goes after the Guardians in here. Here's a 2-page splash page here, which is really awesome. And we get to see them do battle against this creature. And we wind up seeing Ben Grimm do the classic, it's clobbering time, and knocks the shit out of her. So visually, this book really stood out for me. Story maybe wasn't as strong this time around because they're battling this Kree warrior, and you see Drax get a control of her actual staff in the book, and they had to stop him from destroying things. But you wind up seeing that Peter Quill is forced to witness the destruction of both planets. His Earth planet, which is his own planet, and Spartax, which is his other planet, so which is the planet he rules. So, and she puts him in this capsule or whatnot when she recovers from her injuries. So that was pretty cool book. I like Guardians of the Galaxy. I feel it's a solid book. The story itself wasn't as great as the first issue to see where all these characters are in this point in time, but nevertheless, it was a good book. All right, and so that was number 4, 4.25 out of 5 stars. All right, so now we go on to the top 3. Number 3, and number 3, guys, goes to Chew, issue number 52. This book really kind of is coming to a close now as we get to see Agent Chew and his partner Savoy kind of team up together. And Agent Chew swore not to team up with him ever again because they had this battle, and Agent Savoy, this guy here, bit off his ear. And we get to see them trying to find out what's going on with this alien writing that's in the sky that's been a mystery for the entire series. And it's funny because you find out that the Pope says chicken is doom because it's this virus that was caused. But you get to see a little bit of a backstory on what happened to Savoy's wife during the chicken flu, what caused all these people to get sick in here. And it was cool to see these two team up, and you get to see, instances of what would happen when they do other missions with each other, how they go and they do battle against crazed robot sous chef and radioactive chug, and they do a Ghostbusters mission together. So it's all these things that you see. I think it's funny that things that they could have teamed up with. Choose a great book, and all this says is that this series is coming to an end as you get to see certain characters being highlighted now. I think it ends at issue 60, and it's a great series. I really enjoyed it a lot. Just the interactions between those two characters is priceless. The artwork is good. The humor is awesome. It deserves the third spot this week at 4.5 out of 5 stars. All right, so now we go on to number 2, and number 2 goes to all new Wolverine. The second time in a row this has cracked the top 3, but hasn't gotten number 1 for me. This has gotten number 2. In this issue, in the first issue, I thought it was a little bit of a cop-out that we're dealing with clones already when it comes to Laura, even though they don't have feelings, and she's got to try to rescue them and try to help them. I think that was really strong of her character, but I just didn't want to deal with clones. And then you find out a little bit more about who these people are in the issue, which I thought was really interesting. It gave you a little bit more insight to these clones, and it felt like they had a little bit more personality. They're more in depth, and you get to see Laura really try and go out of her way and try to help them in a way. And she's being followed by the government and whatnot. You get to see her use her powers in here, which I thought was really neat. The relationship with her and Angel is awesome in here. There's a great panel in here with them, and when Angel picks her up and she's like, are you scared of me? And he goes, I don't think there's any right way to answer that. I sense the whole question could be a trap. And she's just like, oh yeah, good instincts, So I love her character there, and I love the interactions between these two characters. They're awesome. But then you get to see Laura come in contact with these clones, which I think was really neat. And you get to see the interactions with them and how they were treated by the government, how you find out that they don't have a healing factor, that you find out that they didn't develop the claws that Laura did, but they don't have any personality. And, and you find out that she gets her own gang of clones in this issue, which I thought which is pretty neat. But right when you think that things are all hunky-dory and they're going to work together and they're going to stop the government, the next thing you wind up seeing that I didn't expect in this issue was triple shots to the head from Taskmaster. And I was like, damn, he put an end to those clones quick. At least so you think. If it ends the clone thing, I would think that would be kind of awesome, because it's kind of like, no more clones, just kidding. You thought we were going to dwell on this whole story with clones, but no, you're going to deal with one badass Taskmaster in here. So I thought that was pretty cool, Good introduction to this series. Good 2 issues so far. And I can't wait to see Laura actually do some serious freaking kick-ass against Taskmaster. But Taskmaster's no freaking waste. He's not some character that you can't stop easy. I mean, he can copy all your moves and things like that. So he's a really good character. So I can't wait to see the battle between those two. And really enjoyed this book. Got 4.75 out of 5 stars. Love the ending of this book. Overall, it's a great series. But there was one book this week that really actually stood out for me, and I really enjoyed it. And it was The Return of Saga, chapter number 31. This really deals with the daughter in this particular issue, and she's actually in school, and she's learning things, and you find out her personality as a young little girl right now, and her name was Hazel, and the kids love her, and you think everything is all good, but you find out that she was actually captured, I think, by the Wreath, and you find out everything that happened up until the point until she actually got to the school. You know, they actually keep the people prisoners, but the young ones get to go to school. They get to learn and things like that. And so what happens is you find out, you know, all up until that point. That's really what goes on in this particular issue. You get the reintroduction of Isabel, which is cool, which is the ghost that keeps watch over her. And you get to see, you know, how old she is. She's 4 years old now. Her teacher really liked her. And what happens is the book actually touches on the transgender issue in this particular book. You know, you really see that in this issue, and you get to see the girl experience that in a way. And then you wind up showing that the baby Hazel here, you know, the teacher was really close to her, and the teacher said, you know, if you have anything that you want me to tell you about, you could really tell me anything. And we find out in this book that, you know, excuse me, in this book, you know, the teacher finds out that she is both. Thanks to obviously Alana and Marco, they're the ones, they're opposite species, and you find out that she is both species. And it was really interesting how they touched on that character there. And the teacher just didn't know how to handle it. And so what happens is she winds up fainting, and she winds up hitting her head on the corner of the table, and she winds up bleeds out. And you sit there, and Hazel's sitting there going, oh my God, what did I just do? So now they're going to see that the guards are going to come in. They're going to see that this teacher is bleeding out. She hit her head, and you got this monstrosity of a species. She's the abomination of the species, of the wreath and the, trying to think of the other species it was. Oh, I can't think of it offhand. But again, if they see her that she's like that, it's who knows what's going to happen to her. And I really love this issue. It's written so well. The artwork is done beautifully by Fiona Staples, and it's a great story here with Hazel. This is the first issue that you really get to see Hazel in a book actually interacting with characters. She's starting to grow up, and as the reader, you're growing up, you're growing with her, you know, witnessing her story. So really great book. So guys, there you have it. There's the countdown for the week. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And fans, as always, tell me in the comments below what your favorite book was, what your least favorite book of the week was. And fans, as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next review. Take care, fans. Bye.